This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Tired of losing in fantasy sports? Times are changing. Now it's just you versus the numbers. Prize Picks is the perfect place for you whether you are the biggest sports fan around or you're a seasoned vet in the daily fantasy space. On Prize Picks, you simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go over or under their fantasy projection. Think Denny Hamlin is going to win the big race? Take his over and win real cash today. Prize Picks gives you the chance to win 10 times your money for getting 4 predictions correct. Entries are so simple. They can be made in less than 60 seconds. Sign up today at prizepicks.com or on the Prize Picks app and use code DIRTYAIR, that's DIRTYAIR, DIRTYAIR, to get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Prize Picks truly is daily fantasy simplified. Everybody, welcome back. This is episode 16 of Dirty Air, your number one podcast for all DFS gambling related NASCAR talk. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Baumel, gambling DFS tips on Twitter. The two men that always join me, Jason, DFS NASCAR on Twitter. Jason, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys?
And Brandon, the other part of the analyst crew, as we'll call him, Brandon Cruz, DFS on Twitter. Brandon, what's up?
Howdy.
So, Jason, you know the first question every week, except this is going to be a two-part question.
Oh, great.
Last week at Dover, 1, was it a good race? And 2, how did Hendricks get away with blatantly, obviously cheating?
I don't think it was a very good race. I mean, this was one that, it was like the last week it seemed like when Truex dominated, it was still a good race, but this race, I don't know, it just seemed pretty boring, drawn out. Not a lot of action. I didn't see a lot of side-by-side racing. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of passing going on the track. I just thought it was pretty boring. So no, it was a good race. And what's the second part of the question?
How did Hendricks get away with cheating? So obviously running top.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't even close. It was like when you looked at it was like they were all within, I think, 3 or 4 seconds of each other. And then I think Joey, who was running in 5th most of the race, was like 9 seconds. I mean, it wasn't like they were running a different racetrack than everybody else.
Have you seen the tweet I don't even know. I should have looked to see who it was that put it out, but there were pictures of the Hendricks cars and how they showed how their right windshield was like curved more than all the other cars.
I assume that helps with aerodynamics or something.
I'm guessing. I don't know. Brandon would, but I don't. Did you see any of that, Brandon?
No, I'd have to see the picture that you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wish I would have shot down who it was. You guys could look it up. So very, very helpful part of the podcast there. This is interesting to look into and see if you see anything about that. But I don't think it would be cheating. But I mean, it could be an advantage that they found.
Brandon, what were your thoughts on the race last week?
I love Dover as a race. Like, that was a Dover race that I expect. Like, obviously, we kind of all whiffed with just how the projections went. No excuse there. But I always liked Dover of just how fast it is. It's always quote unquote boring because, everybody kind of spreads out with this type of car. But I mean, I like Dover. I like the type of track. I like the track. I like the type of racing that the drivers have to do. Like, sure, it might be boring on TV, but as a driver, like, you're there having to drive the car the entire race. Like, there's almost no time to relax. So I always liked Dover, but that just me.
And from a casual
translate. Go ahead. I wish it would translate to where maybe you can physically see them struggle a little bit more. It's just seeing it it's hard for a fan to look at that and see that going on. Like last week at Darlington, you see them getting close to the wall, you see him fishtailing, you see him pushing it to the limit. You don't really see that from maybe the TV in Dover, and I guess maybe that's why you have that. I have that different opinion this week as opposed to the week prior.
And so, Brandon, one of the questions I was going to ask you in terms of the actual racetrack of Dover. So, from a casual fan point of view, watching, I watch like YouTube vlogs of drivers and things like that, or whatever, as they try and prepare for these races. Some of them do iRacing, some of them have these driving coaches, kind of all whatever. And what a lot of them mentioned was that I guess the apron at Dover is much slicker than aprons elsewhere, where basically you can get a tire onto some other aprons and kind of do some slide jobs, as opposed to on Dover, it gets you really loose. Is that what the apron's made of? Is that the banking of it? What's like the reasoning for something like that?
I would say more it's because of the banking, just because it's so the angle that the concrete and the asphalt meet on the apron is pretty extreme. Like, it's almost as bad as Daytona. You're just on a much tighter track, And, that's what upsets the car. I don't think it's just because they put asphalt on the bottom and the racing surface is concrete or anything like that.
So, Jason, what did we learn from last week's race? What are we going to take going forward?
Man, it's the Gibbs cars, that is the biggest takeaway is just how the Gibbs cars just showed up just flat this week. It's just baffling to see Truex show up and struggle. Hamlin struggled. I mean, what we saw with Kyle Busch, the engine troubles, and Christopher Bell, good Lord, he way underperformed what we expected him to. It just goes to show you that any given week, man, things could look like they're just sure things in this sport, and you just never know what team's going to show up and just completely miss the setup. I mean, Truex looked like the lock of the year. I mean, everything was pointing to Truex just coming out and at least being competitive, and just to be an anchor the whole race was just baffling. So I guess the takeaway is what we all know about NASCAR DFS is just it can be pretty unpredictable at times.
So, Brandon, as Jason was saying, there are obviously very unpredictable things. There also are predictable things, and William Byron, another top 5. At what point do we just need to consider that William Byron's right now one of the best cars, at least in consistency in terms of performing every week?
So the way that the schedule is now, I mean, we go to so many different tracks. All that matters in NASCAR now is winning races. That's how the playoffs are structured. Byron is having something very similar to, Matt Kenseth's 2003 championship season, to where I think Kenseth only won 1 or 2 races that year, but was super, super consistent. That's not going to win a championship, but it's certainly going to look good week to week. Hopefully that kind of answers that. NASCAR doesn't care about consistency anymore. It's all about winning.
Championship wise, yeah, that's. But I mean, from a DFS standpoint, I definitely think he's a guy who we should definitely be considering each week, especially at the price we're getting on him. Because I feel like he's got a performance coming where he's going to put up another dominator type performance. I feel like that could be happening in the next 3 or 4 weeks with just how well he's running and the price we're getting. And as long as we keep getting him at this $8,400 price, and yeah, I think he's a guy who we should be definitely looking at a lot moving forward.
And so I want to, now that you mentioned pricing, I'll let you get back to this, Ryan, but pricing has been really horrible the last month. I hate this chalk in the 6K range each week. All it is
Ross Chastain, pretty much. You got to play Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez.
You got chalk in the 6K range. You're either forced to go down to a punt play or go to the chalk plays in 6K range. There's not enough diversity. So I mean, at least we're getting qualifying this week. Hopefully that'll help. Hopefully salaries aren't as
salaries will be out before qualifying, before we know. So yeah, that's definitely gonna help. It's gonna be a little bit more old school NASCAR DFS.
Dude, that's been so annoying. Really diving into making or looking at lineups. When you make a lot, you're just funneled towards certain builds in certain areas, and it's that's really annoying. That's not fun.
So before we get into this upcoming week, I think it's kind of good to look at last week, but also just the season as a whole. So I'm going to ask you both, buy low, sell high. Two drivers, one that has potentially underperformed to this part of the season that you think has a high upside going forward, and then the other side of that, somebody who you think may have overperformed to this part of the season that you think may not necessarily be, whether it could be from a DFS standpoint, it could be from just a NASCAR, standing standpoint, however you kind of want to take that and phrase it. Just make sure you talk about whether you think it's a DFS or kind of a real life situation. Jason, what 2 drivers? Well, let's start here. Who are you buying low on? Let's buy low.
Buy low. I got that. I can do buy low now. I would say at this point in the season, a guy who I think, with where he's been priced at, who I think is a good buy low, who's definitely struggled so far this season, is a guy like Chase Briscoe. We've seen him start to run a little better the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the finishes aren't still there, but I think it's promising to see him actually running top 15, top 16, as opposed to where we saw at the beginning of the season, 24th, 27th, 28th. I mean, it's good to see, Haas is showing a little bit more speed. He's a guy who I think, in this price range moving forward, I'm definitely going to buy low there.
Brandon, who are you looking at to buy low? Who has underperformed in your mind, or at least do you think has a better outlook on the season going forward?
Well, is this kind of cheating if I look at Eric Almirola? Because it's quite hard to do worse than wrecking every week. You can only go up from here. You know you know how hard it is to finish 37th back-to-back weeks and then have that be because of being involved in wrecks. Like he is a 34th, a 30th, 38th, 36th, 37th, and 37th this year. Like that's really hard to do with the equipment that he's in. I know he's getting wrecked and it's not his fault, but like, we kind of have to buy low on Eric. And also like all this Dogecoin talk, like it was a great investment when it was like 0.4 of a penny, when it was worth 0.0004. Like you can't get into Dogecoin now and it's 53 cents, especially when it's not going to be actually useful.
Back down to like 30 cents now.
All right, yeah, like I mean, all these dumb Zoomers in there be like, oh, Dogecoin's going to go up over $1 with SNL. Elon Musk is on there. He's going to say to the moon it'll go up. Like, come on, these guys are a bunch of idiots. I think Byron. Going back to kind of what I said here.
This is your sell high.
Yeah,
this is the other side of it. Okay.
Yeah, this is the other side of it. Like, sure, he's consistent in everything, but we see every year the people who are consistent in April, May typically aren't that consistent, or they're not that fast, late in the playoffs, and certainly, in November. Like we're in May, the championship is decided in November at completely different racetracks than what we're racing at right now. So this might be the pinnacle of Byron's.
So let me ask you this about Byron then. Obviously, the Hendricks, Penske, Gibbs cars at the beginning of the season, they're all, for the most part, like we've got championship aspirations. We're trying to win a championship. Realistically, before the season started, what could you have told Hendricks that the 24 team is going to do where they'd say it's a successful season? Are we talking, the final 8 or 6, the 3 wins? Because I think he's already kind of had a pretty good season. As long as it doesn't fall off, I think he, especially if he wins one more time, I think they'd consider this a successful season, even if he's not, technically in championship contention at the end of the year.
Well, they certainly want a win from poor little Byron. They probably want him in round of 8, I would have to say. I think let's see, what does he have? He has 2 wins.
Realistically, do you think they would have ranked him as their 3rd or 4th? He would have been maybe their 4th ranked driver coming into the year behind Chase, Kyle, and I think him and Bowman. I still think Bowman probably would have been 3rd ahead of him, right?
Yeah, and I think Byron's certainly. I think he's still at the bottom. Entering a road course week, we have to throw Chase Elliott back on the top there. Now if we go to like the 4th road course and Elliott's still struggling, kind of how he's doing, then we can start really putting him at the bottom of the totem pole. But we're back at a road course. Everything's pretty much pointing towards very few drivers, and Elliott's certainly one of those guys, and so we got to bring Elliott back to the very top of Hendrick this week.
Yeah, and I think that's part of all of that too. I think with Byron, just 10 top 10s in a row, he's got a win in there. I think it's. He's at the bottom of the Hendricks team, but the Hendricks team right now is, the bottom of the Hendricks team might be the 6th or 7th best driver, in the standings right now. Jason, who are you selling high on? Who do you think has overperformed to this part of the season?
Who I'm selling high on right now, just because of where he's going to be priced at. I don't necessarily call him overperforming, but I'm just saying the stretch we're getting to run into, I'm going to sell high on Kyle Larson right now. Get ready to see a lot of road courses coming up. We got a couple races at Pocono coming up. These aren't the styles of tracks where we've seen Larson dominate at or be competitive at. I think at this price where he's at moving forward over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'm going to be selling high on Kyle Larson.
Jason, after last week, would you still take the prop bet of that they're offering? It is the championship winner this year being Kyle Larson or Martin Truex or the entire field. Are you taking those two, or would you take the field?
Oh, I would take the field.
Yeah, Brandon?
I would still take those 2 guys. I'd also go Elliott. What's Elliott at? Do you have that with you? Or just bringing that up?
I don't. I know he was, I think, still like the 4th highest odds, just because I think Vegas is aware that, NASCAR set up the playoffs for Chase Elliott to be successful if he's halfway decent.
Elliott's going to be the first ever 10-time champion in a row.
No, I think you got to take the field, man. There's a lot of good competition out there. You got Hamlin. You got to think Harvick's going to get back. I mean, Logano is always sneaky in playoffs. I mean, it's not going to roll over and hand it over to Truex and Larson. And we've seen Larson. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, yeah, he's been great, but I mean, he definitely hasn't been closing. I mean, championships, you got to close for that championship. So we'll see.
Chase Elliott is 8-1. So right now the odds: Truex is 5-1, Larson 5.5-1, Denny 7, Kyle, Chase are both 8, Brad and Joey are 9, Harvick is 10, Blaney's 12. I actually think I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's expecting, but I mean Harvick at 10-1, kind of like Jason said. Like at some point Harvick could turn this around, and if Harvick turns it around and gets back into old Harvick, I mean, you could be looking at 4 weeks from the championship race where Harvick's in that Martin Truex, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin range.
Yeah, you got to think if you're Harvick, what would you rather do? You rather dominate like you did last year and fall apart in the last 4 races, or have a mediocre and then turn it on in the last 4 races? So there's just multiple ways to win a championship.
All right, well, let's get into this week. This week, the Echo Park Texas Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. 68 laps around the road course there. I think there's 2 different road courses. I think this is the long road course. I don't know how many there are, but NASCAR made it a special thing that we're taking the long road course. I don't really know what that means, but that's what they're doing. 68 laps around, as NASCAR calls it, the long road course. 15 laps stage 1, 17 laps in stage 2, 36 in stage 3. Jason, we can get into the specifics in a race in a second, but this weekend's a little differently because they're going to get some practice. They're going to do some qualifying, so we're not just kind of going to that. Tell us kind of a little bit about the weekend schedule and how you're going to prepare a little bit differently than you have been when we have the starting lineup on a Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, I can tell you Jason's leaving this week. That's how he's adjusted to it.
No, I mean, as far as like in preparation, it's nice. We get to actually watch some practice time. You'll get to look at some data, see these cars on the track. These guys will have a chance to adjust. So that's going to be huge. We're going to get salaries are going to be out before qualifying. So we're going to have DraftKings is going to miss on a lot of places. You're going to find some position differential, price differently. I mean, it's going to be like old school NASCAR DFS. It's going to be great. I'm pretty excited about it. This whole COTA is, I hope I'm saying it right, man. I'm completely ignorant to this course, to this prestige. Like, I know there's a prestige around these, like Indy that races on it. So forgive me. I feel like there's a lot of anticipation for this race, and I'm kind of ignorant to like what it is. I've watched some YouTube videos, and I see the track now. So at least it seems like it's a lot more technical than what we see in other road courses NASCAR goes to. So should be a lot of fun. I think I do see though, forecast wise, it looks like we're getting a shit ton of rain down there. It looks like we're having rain on practice, qualifying, all the races. It looks like there's a lot of rain in the forecast, unless I looked at that wrong.
My limited research has told me that the track that turn 1 is uphill and fairly blind, and that's about all I know about the track. That's all I know. Mm-hmm. Brandon, what are your initial thoughts on the scheduling this weekend and how you plan to attack it?
I am hoping we get rain for everything, all 3 series, all 3 practices. It's the only way to save any entertainment factor here. I've gotten 4 tornado warnings in the last 2 days. All the rain heading to Austin has already passed me, so hopefully it's just a downpour for the whole weekend, because that'd be really fun to watch. This is a really technical track, more so than the normal Watkins Glen. I would argue that probably Sonoma is probably the closest to this type of track if you guys aren't familiar with the tracks. But look, everybody knows I'm not too big into road course racing. I find it quite boring, but Circuit of the Americas is it's made for F1 cars, basically. It's made to get that international recognition. That's why it's Circuit of the Americas, not Circuit of Texas or anything like that. Like, this is supposed to be the prestigious America racetrack that all international series go to, and we're gonna take NASCAR's NASCAR vehicles on it and make it look really ugly.
So in terms of the scheduling of it, after the practice, before the qualifying, you'll have a chance to make changes to the car without there being what they call the improper adjustments or whatever. For example, what we saw with Kyle Larson earlier this year, if you get into practice and you realize you still have a packer on your engine, you can take that off after, you can take, obviously not run the practice because you're going to blow your car
engine, first off.
Whatever it is, whatever happened last, the thing, and that could be fixed without it being adjusted because Jason felt the need to come in and compare my technical abilities. That's true?
Yeah, I mean it's just like regular racing where you have practice sessions, you can make changes to it. Mainly because qualifying is the last thing that we're gonna do for the trucks and Xfinity, and so they'll just go right into the race based on what they have in qualifying. The Cup Series is gonna have their practice, or it's the same thing actually. Yeah, everybody's qualifying right before the race. So whatever adjustments they make from their practice session, they bring into qualifying and they race with that as well. To answer your question with the long course or what section of COTA we're using, there's technically 3 courses that Circuit of the Americas has. It's the East course, which is the smallest one, and then the West, and then the Grand Prix, the entire long one that they have right now. That's the only thing that's to note. That's what they mean when they mean the long course. It's the entire racetrack.
So it is gonna be a little bit of a different show this week because it is hard for us to kind of get into without any kind of starting position, any salaries, anything like that, because we're recording earlier on Wednesday night. Jason, just in terms of a road course, obviously Chase Elliott's the one that comes to mind. Martin Truex is the other one that comes to mind. Some road course drivers that you're looking at just generally, going into this week, and then the other road courses coming up going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have the Dinger in this race, so obviously he's gonna be a guy we're gonna look at, especially on a track like this that is going to be a lot more technical. I think the trick this week is going to be to there's going to be there are guys who we've seen be good on these Roval style tracks and guys we've seen be good on the technical tracks. I don't think you want to invest as much into the guys who've been good on the Roval. You want the guys who are real authentic road course racers, like an AJ Allmendinger, like your Chase Elliott. I think Kyle Busch is going to be a guy who, with practice and his technical ability actually driving these road courses, he's going to be a guy who I think is going to be very good this week. And then I think we got Ty Dillon in the field. I don't think he's a guy who a lot of people is going to gravitate to, obviously, because he does have some good road coursing ability. But I think a lot of that success has been on some of these Roval type tracks. But those are the top guys that I'm looking at right now. Is your Dingers, your Chase Elliott's, and the biggest thing about the strategy going into a road course race is we know there's not going to a ton of laps. There's 62 laps, so really dominator points are not going to be as important. You're wanting to pick guys who are going to finish, and the position differential. I mean, landing those. I mean, getting after those 15, 20 position differential points that you can pick up are going to be key this week.
Brandon, what any kind of other drivers Jason didn't really mention? The one that I was thinking of, I think, actually falls into Jason's category of he's been decent at the Roval style tracks, which is a Ryan Blaney kind of type of driver. What kind of are you looking at the same thing Jason said, kind of a technical driver? Are you gonna wait till practice to watch him? What's your take on this week?
Well, practice data is gonna determine everything, but entering the week, I can't really say that we can look towards the Roval more than the other courses, because while this is an actual road course, it's not a makeshift Roval Charlotte situation. It has everything in terms of fast sweeping turns like Watkins Glen. Pretty much from turns 1 to 12, it's gonna race similar to Watkins Glen, or at least with that type of speed. And then when you get down right before you come back to the start finish line, you have turns 12 to 20 that are really, really technical. And so that's really similar to the Roval at Charlotte, to where they're really sharp turns, really low speed, And so just looking across the board, who's good at road courses in general, I'm mainly just looking for guys who have gotten top 10s, in the last, say, I don't know, last 10 road courses. So it's people like Harvick, it's people like Martin Truex Jr., it's people like Ryan Blaney, people like Chase Elliott, even somebody like William Byron. These are the type of guys that pop out to me. Even Austin Cindric, because I think Austin Cindric is racing this weekend as well.
Yeah,
and so yeah. I'll have interest in him as well.
Brandon, so in terms of some of the value that we expect to see towards the bottom of the salaries and some of these back markers, obviously harder for some of these cars to go laps down with it being a 3.5 mile track. Is this a week where you almost play similar to a super speedway where you pick maybe your one or two guys that you think are going to dominate or, are going to finish up top and then try and get some of these back markers and try and get, 20 plus point differential out of them?
So if you look back at the road course earlier this year, you had the optimal lineup being Allmendinger, Bell, Bowman, Logano, Jones, and Suarez. The starting positions of those guys were 34th, 12th, 36th, 11th, 37th, 38th. I think it's going to be very similar to that. Maybe not necessarily where your winner comes from, the teens, but I'm going to be focusing heavy on place differential.
Especially with all the rain in the forecast. I mean, if we know it's going to be a shit show of rain, you're definitely going to play guys who are starting in the back. And I mean, either way, position differential is typically how you score points on road courses.
Yeah, hopefully we have a lot of hydroplaning, like entering 1 up the hill, entering 12 off the straightaway,
But I will say, as a guy for value, I know who we know is going to be priced very cheap and probably ain't going to qualify that well is James Davison. I mean, this is a track.
No, what are you doing? No.
What are you talking about? You wouldn't play James Davison this week if he's priced at 4,500 starting last?
Hell no. Do I have to remind you when he skipped Indy 500 practice last year because he believed he could win at Daytona?
This is not Daytona. I mean, he finished 23rd at the road course.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Jason, that I can't believe I'm about to ask. Is he going to be chalkier than he should be because
he finished 34th at the road course?
No, this year.
Oh no, yeah, okay, yeah, my bad. Yeah, I was looking at that race. Yeah, he finished 28th in that race, 23rd this year. Let's look at his last finishes: 23rd, 30th, 29th. Yeah. Who did he beat? What happened? Okay, so Bubba gets spun on the last lap. Larson had issues. Let's see what else.
He ran Briscoe well that race. I remember watching him run well and thinking, "Damn, I should have played Davison."
You got a lot of that was based
mid race was 21st. He was 21st at mid race.
That's man, no. I don't like Davidson at all. Looking at his.
Road courses are where you can see a guy with road course ability take a subpar equipment and run well. I mean, this is something we see time and time again, right? I mean, why? James Davison is a lot better road course and racer than probably half the field, especially if we get rain. I mean,
so that goes back to my question. Is there any chance that James Davison, because he said he feels like he has a chance, especially if it's raining, and he won the iRacing event tonight, is there any chance he's chalky?
Oh, I didn't even. Did he win the iRacing? Shit.
Yeah, dude. He
by like 30 seconds.
5 minutes.
Oh no. Yeah. Then I didn't know that. I don't know if he's gonna be. It depends, right? If he's 4,500 starting dead last and he's gonna be chalky, then yeah, that's gonna be a little different. But I mean, off the bat, I'm gonna have interest in him even if he's qualifies 31st. And I don't know.
I think he starts 27th. But the reason I wanted to look at the road course is let's really look at the situations of why he beat people. Okay, he beat Quinhoff. Chastain ran into the wall. Reddick lost a tire. De Benedetto lost the entire left rear of his car.
I mean, are we not going to see this stuff this weekend?
Yes, but James isn't going to be starting towards the rear in this race. He should start in the 20s. If James starts, 22nd, I'm not going to be shocked.
Yeah, if he starts 22nd, then I probably won't play him. Yes, you were right, because I told you he could finish 25th, 26th, which I was saying him to start further back than that and be priced low for it to be a consideration. And it has to make sense with the rest of the roster construction, right? I have to be making sure I'm getting a lot of upside from the rest of the lineup. But
I don't want any chalk at a road course or super speedway. That's just how it is. Yeah. I don't want any type of chalk, and I already know James is going to be like that this weekend.
All right. Well, like I said, I had no idea he won the iRacing event. I didn't even watch it tonight.
Me neither, but Bob Hawkers told me he won by a minute and a half. So
yeah, I had it in the background when I was on a phone call, and good old Boyer trying to save the broadcast, try to take him out.
Yeah, I forgot all about it. It's unfortunate.
I'll get into that question later because that'll get us off track. But is there any?
Come on, but
Is there? No, we've got a special segment.
Let's get off track. No, let's get off track.
We've got a special segment at the end of this. Is there anybody else we haven't talked about this week? I know there's kind of a bunch of guys in the middle. That it's kind of hard to, it depends on where they start, and obviously where they're priced. Jason, anybody we haven't talked about specifically you want to mention?
No, not specifically. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard to look into to start talking about these guys without knowing when we're gonna have practice and stuff. But I mean, obviously, Jones is a guy who's been good at road courses, so he's probably gonna be pretty chalky. I mean, there's Busher is another guy who's typically runs pretty well at these road courses. I plan on putting out something where I'm gonna at least rank these guys this week as like their road course prowess. We can actually let's try to do that right now. Do you want to do like the top 10?
We can.
Sure.
Okay, so number one, we would all agree would be Chase Elliott, right?
How about I'll do number 1 and 2, and you guys do 3 through 10.
Sure.
So Chase Elliott can be number 1, and Martin Truex can be number 2.
Okay, and I will
and now
go.
You guys get 3 through 10.
I'll go Denny Hamlin.
Mm-hmm.
And AJ Allmendinger.
I'll probably do Logano for 5th. Probably Harvick for 6th. You can fill out that.
So is this Ryan's turn?
No, you guys have the rest.
No, I dumped it all on you, Jason.
Oh, so
you
got 5.
Well, here I'll give you this. I'll give you 7. Will be 7. I'll give you as Kyle Busch.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Who did you say was 6? Was Harvick, right?
Yep.
Oh shit. Yeah. I would say 7 would be Kyle Busch. Yeah, and then Ryan Blaney. 8.
I mean, if we're talking about like road course drivers, like
Bowman's got to be up there too.
Is it crazy that a guy like James Davison is like 10th? Like in just terms of road course driving?
Yes, dude, you're smoking crack. You guys are.
I've been smoking crack for years. That's nothing new tonight.
Come on, man.
I didn't say 10th. Come on.
I'm just asking. You said top half of the field. So it's
I said he's probably
30 cars, 36.
No, 40. There should be 40 this week.
Yeah, it's 40.
So how about like a Chris Buescher?
Yeah, we got a real race this week. 40 car field.
All right, so that was a terrible segment. Cindric, I still think you got to put some of these other guys ahead of them.
I mean, right? It's a question of are you talking about like
Blaney,
a driver or
put Blaney
car?
So I want to bring up that another thing I heard this week is that Skip Barber is really giving Rick Ware a lot of money this weekend because they don't want to look like a bunch of idiots sponsoring Davidson this weekend. For those of you that don't know, like Skip Barber Racing School, like that's like the school to go to if you want to learn road course racing, and so you really don't want James making your school look like an ass.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into. We're gonna do a segment at the end, just kind of some general NASCAR talk with some of the NASCAR news that's going on. But let's cap this week off first. We can get into our 2 and done segment that we do every single week.
Well, hold on. I do want to bring up some DFS related stuff. So on average, like the guys in terms of DFS who scores the best, it's usually Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick has quite a few top 10 days in DFS, Ryan Blaney. I mean, the guys that you know, but guys that I think you should consider would be Matt DiBenedetto, and here's my other guy that I want to bring up. Matt DiBenedetto and Cole Custer. Like, I really want to put asterisks by those two guys. Like, I think they perform well this week.
I agree. All right. Any other final thoughts before we get into the 2 and done?
Don't play Eric Almirola this week. No, I'm just joking. That's it.
All right. Well, let's get into this. Obviously, Brandon is trying to delay the 2 and done because he's made fun of me for 3 consecutive weeks. And in 3 consecutive weeks, what was a 100-point lead? Let me remind you, a triple-digit lead, more than 99 points, is basically evaporated. So, kids
Well,
at home,
look, we
don't
purposely
trash talk
kept
till you
it
get to the
clean.
finish line.
Evaporated.
Look, yeah. Like,
Between me and Brandon, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
look at my picks,
You're ahead of us.
driver.
I told you, I'm not trying to catch you, Jason. I'm just trying to catch
Oh,
Brandon.
okay.
I gave up on you. But all right, so let's recap this from last week. From Dover last week, Jason, Tyler Reddick, 30 points, still in first place at 489. Brandon, you had Matty D, 13 points. You are at 426. I had Alex Bowman, the race winner, 51 points. I am at 414. So it goes Jason 489, Brandon 426, and I am at 414. Brandon, for the fourth consecutive week in a row, you have sucked, which means you get to pick. Go ahead.
Let's see. Do I pick a real driver this weekend, or do I keep burning bad plays? We're gonna probably keep burning bad plays. I gotta really save stuff for the playoffs.
Well, you made fun of me for burning a bad play when I took Chris Buescher and he got 14 more points than the driver you took that week.
I'm choosing Eric Jones.
All right, Eric Jones. So the answer was no. He's going to keep burning bad drivers.
We're gonna keep burning bad, but we got to at least do this for 2 more weeks, then we can go back to picking good plays.
Well, technically Jason is next. I'm just going to say that I'm picking Chase Elliott because Jason can't pick Chase Elliott. He's already picked him twice. I have not picked Chase Elliott yet. So this seems like a good spot to pick Chase Elliott for me. I will use him for my first time. So I will take Chase Elliott. Jason?
Oh, I will take
a recap of your drivers. I know I should have posted this before.
No. Give me. God, see, I'm tempted to use Kyle here, but it would be stupid to use him at the road course. But he's pretty good at road courses.
So is Cody Ware.
Yeah, he is. Give me brother Kurt. I'll take Kurt Busch.
Kurt.
Yeah.
No, I do just want to remind you, the only other person that used Kurt Busch this year was Brandon. When Brandon used him, he got him 2 points because his car ended up on fire.
It died.
Well, that changes nothing.
All right, so
I'm
that's
glad
where
you didn't let me change to Kyle Busch last week, though.
You're welcome. See, you get rewarded for, the general niceness. It just gets rewarded in karma going forward. So you had it for that week. Now I'm catching up to Brandon as the meanie from 3 weeks ago, the bully, the kid who tried to
Look. I was a bully in high school. I got to keep it on here. Okay, I got to keep being rude.
All I'll say is that I think if there was odds for going into next week, with me being 12 points behind Brandon, him having Eric Jones, and me having Chase Elliott, I think it would be a big surprise if Chase Elliott doesn't score 12 more points than Eric Jones this week. I'm sure I just cursed myself, but
oh my God, you definitely just hurt yourself. You cannot put shit out like that in the universe for NASCAR DFS. You cannot.
Yeah, but
Wednesday entering the week.
What you're forgetting though is Brandon's on the other side of that. So whatever NASCAR gods are going to attack me, they've got to realize that they're also benefiting Brandon, the person who's told them that their sport has sucked. So I think it's going to go back and forth. You got to look. It's like the devil can't attack me when it's like just fire versus fire. Like the devil's got to pick one side.
I can't wait to send a resume to NASCAR Analytics and link every video I've ever made for them.
They're looking for a social media person. You should.
Oh yeah.
It's like I always tell people,
fans, you guys are idiots for believing.
It's like I always tell people that come into Chick-fil-A and look for a job. The number one way to not get a job at my Chick-fil-A is to tell me how bad my employees are. Like, this person's so bad, I could do this. It's like that's like the number one way to not get a job anywhere. So that's a little life lesson for me. Is Brandon, when you submit your
they can do.
They'll come in and be yeah, they'll come in, or it's a lot of times it's like moms. Like moms will be like, like that cashier, he's not even listening to me. Like, let me give you my son's application. Like he'll listen to customers.
I could
like
stuff
like
that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which I learned at a young age. I told my mother and my father to stay away from that because you think you're helping your kids, but you're really not. So, all right, let's get into some general NASCAR talk for a little bit.
No, I'd like to have another parenting segment from Ryan Baumel. Can you give us some more parenting advice, please?
I'll tell you what, though. Managing a bunch of high school kids is kind of like parenting in a way. It's, you skip the whole growing up stage and you kind of just get high schoolers thrown in your face, but it teaches you a lot.
Yeah, but parenting, you can drown your kid in the tub if you don't like him. Like when you're dealing with teenagers, like you still have to see him every day.
You cannot drown your kids in the tub, Brandon.
Look! You can get away with it, okay?
Jason, to be fair, Brandon lives in Texas. There may be different rules down there.
Look, man. Look, Casey Anthony is one of my highest, designated, idols. I mean, I'm going to follow her to a T.
All right, general NASCAR talk.
On.
So, Jason, the news came out this week. The news came. No, I just started talking. I knew where that was going to go. So, Jason, the news came out this week in a little more positive news, at least for some people. It seems like Brad Keselowski is doing kind of what Tony Stewart did at his, towards the end of his career with Roush Fenway. It sounds like he's getting some sort of a deal to potentially go there, be a driver owner, get, I don't know if it's 50% or some sort of share in Roush Fenway. Sounds like it's pretty much a done deal. What are your thoughts on this?
I like it, man. I think it's great. I think good for Brad. I mean, if it's true, obviously sets him up for a pretty good future to have a part ownership with a good company. A good team like Roush. I mean, he can hopefully help elevate that. I mean, he's got ownership experience, so it should be. And I mean, yeah, I love to see drivers driving for a team they have a partial ownership in, and Brad's a good guy. I mean, it's a good opportunity for him. So I guess it's good to see that Brad's going to be in the sport for a while. I like that. So overall, pretty excited.
Brandon, I saw you had a tweet. I don't know if it was yesterday or today or some point, basically saying that you were happy for Brad and you thought that he's kind of what Jason said is a good guy to have in the sport going forward. He's a likable guy. In the immediate terms, Brad Keselowski in a Roush Fenway car, can he be a championship driver?
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of driver that team needs. I like Keselowski a lot as a driver. He's a guy that I actually like in terms of who he is and how he races and how he looks at things. And he's had a race team before, and it didn't shut down because they weren't succeeding. It just shut down because financially it didn't make sense to keep going. But that was a winning team. If you look at basically a quarter of the Cup field right now, they've raced for Keselowski. You had Cindric, you had Reddick. You had, I just went blank on the other guys, but a lot of guys got their starts, through the Truck Series with Brad Keselowski, and guys who have been successful, proven winners, and he knows how to run a team. I would much rather have Brad having an influence in a team over than somebody like Michael Waltrip, somebody like Roush. Roush needs newer ideas. They need help, and adding Keselowski that's going to be really helpful for them.
The other Penske guys drove for him, right? Didn't Logano and Blaney, weren't they in his truck, I think?
Yeah, on and off. Yeah, certain weekends, yes. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and outside of that, he has his manufacturing company in that same shop that he was running his race team out of. I'm pretty sure they're expanding. Keselowski is one of the guys who has, really good. Let's think of it. Well, businesses pretty much outside of NASCAR. He doesn't need NASCAR to be successful or be rich. Keselowski's a businessman, and when you listen to him talk about races, he's still one of the guys who, really pays attention to what tires are doing, what the setups are doing. He's very analytical. I really like Keselowski because of that.
Yeah, and it comes across when he talks. But also the other thing is Roush isn't like they're that far off. This could be that last piece that they need to step up and contend for championships. I mean, we've seen Buescher consistently run inside the top 10. We've seen him dominate a portion of the race at Homestead. So this team's not that far off to think that Brad Keselowski can't come in and make a difference with them.
And you got the next gen car coming out next year.
Right.
That is going to quote unquote level the playing field for a small period of time.
At least a couple years, yeah. Or a year at least.
Yeah,
Brandon, from the business side of it, does it make this an easier business transaction that Roush Fenway is also Ford? Or does that not have much to do with it?
I don't know if that has much. Manufacturers like that. Have you noticed that a lot people who leave manufacturers, unless they are diehard, Chevy fans or Chevrolet fans, good old Junior and everything, unless you're a diehard Chevy fan, you don't really care when you switch manufacturers.
Well, the only way it would matter would be if Keselowski had Ford dealerships, but I'm not sure if he does or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. And even so,
that would be the only way it would really kind of make a big deal, as if he already had a bunch of stuff all over.
Yeah, like he had a Ford tattoo on his forehead next to his like teardrop under his eye. Like maybe that'd make a difference, but he doesn't have that right now.
So, Jason, a move like this, and I know it's not necessarily wouldn't be the same thing because 2311 is associated in a way with Joe Gibbs Racing. Does this potentially open up the move at some point that Denny Hamlin might drive for 2311 as opposed to Joe Gibbs?
Yeah, I think that's always definitely a possibility, and I think that's probably something Hamlin probably envisions at some point in his career. I would imagine. I mean, I would think he would probably want to eventually drive it for himself, but who knows? I mean, I don't think Earnhardt ever really wanted to race for DEI, so yeah, I don't know. It should. I mean, it's not like this hasn't been done before. It's not like this is groundbreaking. Like,
right.
We've seen Stewart do it.
But it's kind of this era. I would say this era of driver, because I would say Tony Stewart was kind of in that past with like the Jeff Gordon like that. Brad Keselowski in this era of I guess Kevin Harvick's kind of in both, but like the Kyle Busch, the Logano, the Denny Hamlin, like this kind of generation. It's kind of the first driver to do it now.
Yeah, Jason, we ain't talking about the boomers, okay? We're talking about real racers.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, Jeff Gordon, didn't he? I mean, he owned the 48. Is he a boomer too? I'm guessing. Yeah, he's retired. So yeah.
Brandon doesn't like this talk. He'd rather talk about Casey Anthony.
No, right?
So,
Reno.
So Jason, I'll ask you then. In terms of the future of Penske going forward, if this is what it appears as it is with Keselowski moving to Roush Fenway, it seems like their 2-car is that primary car. I think Logano turns into their primary driver, but it seems like he's got a good thing going with the 22 and especially with the Shell sponsorship. What do you see going forward as Penske? I think there's a chance Blaney moves to the 2-car because it doesn't seem like he's as tied to 12. What do you think? They keep Blaney?
I don't think they'll move. I think it would be weird, like just to because Blaney's got the 12 etched out. Like you would think.
But that's what they did with Alex Bowman.
I know they did, but they didn't plan that. They had to. Right? They didn't feel comfortable putting Larson in the 48, so then they kind of had to do that. That was originally the plan, probably back before.
Well, they could have retired the 48. They could have retired the 48.
No, before Larson said the no word, that was going to be it. I imagine he was going to be in the 48, and then they had to make other plans, make other arrangements. I don't think.
But they still could have retired the 48. They still could have ran the 9, the 15, the 9, the 15, the 5, and the 88. They still could have ran that and not switch Bowman to the 48.
I guess you're right, but you got Ally who probably wanted to keep the 48, right?
Yeah, Ally wanted to keep the 48.
See, that's the thing is like everybody keeps like harping on this whole number moving and all that, and like that it used to be like the sponsor and the number were like together. Like you thought of the 3, you thought of Goodwrench, like. That's what made the sponsorships work. It didn't matter if the 3 was big or small or where it was at on the side. So this whole like wanting to move the number for more ideal for sponsors. The sponsors need to figure out the sport needs to figure out how to connect back with the sponsors in that way that we had back in the boomer days.
Yeah,
but that was kind of my point though, right? Because I know it's not necessarily for the majority of cars, but I think Logano, the 22, and like Shell, I think you picture Shell with the 22, no?
Yeah, you do. You're right. Yeah.
So my point is, if they were going to move a driver, I think it would be more. If they were to move one of their current drivers to the 2, I think my point is it would be more likely to be Blaney than Logano because it seems like Logano has that car number sponsorship kind of tied up more than Blaney does.
Cindric into it, I think, and start a new thing with Cindric.
So I was going to bring up 2 things. One, I've been I've been severely disappointed because I only recognize the 6 car with Viagra on the side. Second, they really screwed up Austin Cindric here because this was not planned.
No.
Brad leaving was not planned for Penske. So imagine being Matt Benedetto. They're saying, we do not want you. Get out of here. You're gross. You're trash. We don't like you. We're going to put a real driver in this car. Well, because we have our team right now. We're putting a real car, real team in this 21 car. We're going to put Cindric in there. And now Brad's leaving the 2. They're not going to take Matt DiBenedetto. They basically just fired him. Somebody's going to get the 2 car who does not deserve the 2 car.
Do we think Matty D stays in the 21 if Cindric gets the 2, Jason?
I don't know. I don't know who they would have to go in it, but I mean, I I don't know. I mean, it would be.
Is there any
weird
Xfinity
just
Ford drivers
Yeah, Matty
associated
D,
with
you
them?
can race it for a year now, but I mean, Matty D obviously wouldn't be too proud. He would definitely race it for another year. So I could see that would be the path of least resistance. But I don't know who's going to be. Like, I don't know everybody's contract situation at the end of this year. Who's going to be available to chat? Or
is there any Xfinity drivers tied to Penske or Ford that potentially could be in the come up? Obviously Cindric, but outside of Cindric.
I mean, there's no other Penske Ford drivers.
Riley Herbst to the 2 car.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Herbst is Stuart Haas. But
so what's the chance we get an already established driver or at least a couple year vet into that 2 car and Cindric goes into the 21 for a year or two? Maybe, obviously you said we don't know situations, but maybe a guy like a Tyler Reddick.
No,
I doubt it would be a guy like an Eric Jones, but somebody where if like Brandon said, the plan wasn't to put Cindric in the 2 car. If they don't want to deviate from that plan, do they go?
I think this plan just locked up Matty D for the 21 car for a couple of years.
They've already signed Cindric to the Wood Brothers. If you're the Wood Brothers, who do you want, Cindric or DiBenedetto?
My God! So they can't.
They can't. Like he's already locked. Matt DiBenedetto has already lost his job, and Cindric is contracted.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's things in that contract because the Wood Brothers know they got to stay on Penske's good side, and if Penske's like Cindric's going in the 2, Cindric's going in the 2.
Yeah, like what are the Wood? I mean, yeah, you're right.
It's like if RCR came to Trackhouse and was like, hey, like. I know you want so and so here, but we need him, and like that's kind of how it's that's how Wood Brothers they went from a full-time team to a part-time team, and then they came back as a full-time team, basically as an associate of Penske. I mean, Penske is I don't want to say the reason they're still a full-time team, but it's a big part of it, Jason. No.
Yeah, I would say like I said, I don't know how the contract's written up. I mean, if he's under contract, but I would assume there's a way for Penske to get Cindric in that 2 car. Like I can't. What other, like you said, what other options do they have? There's got to be Cindric in the 2 car.
So, not saying that this is the suggestion for the 2 car because this wouldn't happen, but a former Penske driver who now may be on the outside. What do you see as the future for a guy like Ryan Newman? Is this maybe his last year? Does he go somewhere else? Because we saw today that Fastenal renewed their Roush Fenway contract, so it sounds like them and Chris Buescher in that 17 is going to be a thing. Does Roush Fenway go to 3 cars? Does Ryan Newman, is this his last year? What do you see as the future for Newman, Jason?
I would imagine that Newman's going to be out of that 6 car next year. I don't foresee Roush putting 3 cars together. I think Newman's contract is up. I think everybody's anticipating him retiring. Who knows if he retires or if he decides to take a lesser ride or race sporadically. But yeah, I would say that Roush would most likely keep 2 cars, but who knows? Nothing's on the table. Because you think they're going to run 3? No, I don't think they're going to run 3 cars. No, I don't think they can. Can they?
They can. They just need a charter.
Yeah.
Brandon, your thoughts on just the whole Roush Fenway situation going forward? Ryan Newman, Chris Buescher, Keselowski.
I mean, I think Newman needs to retire, and I'm happy for Brad. I really don't care what happens other than Brad. Like everything's pointing towards Brad.
Could we see Paul Menard back in the 21 car?
Dude, I was gonna bring that up because he is racing this weekend.
Yeah, he is. I mean, can we see him back in the 21 car next year? I mean,
he'd probably run better.
Is Paul Menard an upgrade over Matty D?
The same driver, the exact same. The exact same, probably for cheaper because he doesn't need the money.
Right.
All right. Is there any other general NASCAR talk? You want
to talk about the numbers on the door? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so that seems like kind of more of like brands go boomer and all this, kind of like that old school thing. Because like, as casual fans, I only know kind of one way, but I understand that kind of Jason's point was NASCAR. It's not necessarily people see it like, oh, this is where the car number is. Now you see the sponsor gives a better whatever, but NASCAR just needs to do a better job connecting the number to the sponsors. Jason said kind of how it used to be.
Like NASCAR fucked up with like the way sponsors started happening to where they started splitting everything up, and you stopped getting this like where one driver had one sponsor, and that's just you're just associated them like Rusty and Miller time, like you just that was your guy. Like if you pulled for that driver, all your shirts had that logos on it. But now these guys drive so many different cars. Like I can't even tell you who half the freaking sponsors are on. So like Kyle Busch and Eminem's. Like that's one, but it has nothing.
Well, he's
to do
the
with,
candy man.
right? I mean, it's just like there's very few like sponsors who resonate with their, not resonate, but I guess who you associate. Like back in the day, like Ricky Rudd, Tide, 10. You know, these are things that you just
So
were.
that's a good point that you brought up.
You like
who are the current ones?
Like I used to, freaking my family, we bought Tide because of Ricky Rudd. We bought Chevys because we were freaking RCR, Dale Earnhardt, baby. We went to Goodwrench Service Plus is where we got our cars serviced at, right? We drank Coke. If you drank Pepsi, you were dead to me, you know, because he was Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, we shopped at Home Depot. You'd not fucking shop at Lowe's. Like these are the things that made those sponsorships great in the day. That's what made it valuable back then. You don't.
So who are the current drivers that you mentioned? So like the ones we talked about, kind of the current ones that do have the number tied to the sponsor. I know we kind of talked about Logano, that 22 to the Shell, obviously that 48 to Allies, you know, continuing from what Jimmy had with that. What are some of the other ones that kind of jump out, or is that almost close to it? I know
M&M's. I mean, I don't know. Like
I want to say Brad and Discount Tire, but that's almost like a Penske thing, not a Brad thing, you know.
21 and Citgo, but they're not even the sponsor anymore, are they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are they still? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, they're not. But like, I still feel that when I think of the 21 car, right? Like, you don't have it. And like I said, it doesn't matter where you put that number at on the door. It's not going to change that.
But I guess even when we're talking about it, like, so Rusty was in the 2 car in the Miller car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was when he was in the 2? Right. Yeah. So it's even like, it is still like, Miller Lite is still a sponsor of the 2 car and still of, you know.
Yeah, sometimes.
Right. That's your point, though, is that it's kind of, like as we just kind of brought up Chris Buescher and how Fastenal is now their what they call anchor sponsorship. That used to not really be a thing because your anchor sponsorship was just whoever was sponsoring you basically every race, right?
If you're a William Byron fan, what fucking shirt are you getting? I mean, do you got to buy 7 shirts?
No, man.
You know?
I'm a college student. He's me. I relate to William Byron. He's a college student. I was going to say Liberal University. I just don't like what it's called.
But you know, like it used to be special when your driver drove a different paint scheme. Like the All-Star race back in the day, and you got to see your driver drive something different. It was special then, you know? And it's like, I don't know. It just seems like they've diluted it so much. And typical NASCAR is trying to fix it with, we can fix it, just slide the number back and make it bigger. And it's a dumbass solution. It's not going to fix your problem.
Even going back to what Furniture Racing had with at first Regan Smith, but then with Truex in the 78. I mean, the Bass Pro Shops, that was the 78 car. I mean, that you knew what it was. That was, you know, another one. And then obviously
I think 78. I think no Furniture Row.
Really? Yeah, I guess that's true. But I guess the Furniture Row Bass Pro was they were kind of always the two together because there was always the same car, wasn't it?
I don't think you really got Bass Pro until you got to Truex.
Yeah, they didn't get a real sponsor until he got good.
Yeah. I think Furniture Row. I think that big orange Furniture Row on the front of it is when I think 78.
Orange.
Yeah, I guess the one that I'm looking at.
Orange.
Yeah,
it was white.
Red? Yeah,
no. The one that I'm looking at is a Furniture Row Bass Pro Shops car that I guess Truex drove. It was that, but it's the one that you think of. It's the what? I don't even know how to describe it. It's orange and black and silver and white and.
Nah, man, I'm an OG with Regan Smith. Unsponsored, matte black.
Regan Smith won. He won their first race for him, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Did Brad run with them too?
No, Kurt did.
Okay.
No, did he? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, Kurt did. Yeah. They had 2 cars for a while. Didn't?
Yeah, what a disaster that was.
Yeah, because they had 5 Hour Energy as a sponsor for a while. Was that who was?
That was Jones. That Jones boy.
Was that Jones? It's so weird because even like I know it's like towards the end of his career, but it's like even when you hear 5 Hour Energy, like I think of Boyer. Like it's weird.
Like what do you think of when you think of Harry Gant? What do you think of?
Come on, Skull Bandit. Let's go, Cancer.
Jimmy Spencer. What do you think of?
Kmart, Target, whatever it is.
You don't think of Camel?
When I think of Jimmy Spencer, I think of him yelling on Speed Channel.
You need to get a Winston. It's good like a cigarette should.
No,
maybe isn't that the slogan?
Camel car. That's what I think of when I think Jimmy Spencer. I mean, it's Camel car, Camel cigarettes, baby.
Oh man.
So like when you think of Tony Stewart, do you think of Home Depot?
Yeah.
And then what's if you were to think of what would be like the McDonald's driver, or is there not one?
Jamie McMurray
that's Bill Elliott.
Is the guy who came to
Bill
me.
Elliott.
Yeah, it would be Bill Elliott back in the day. But recently, it'd be Jamie McMurray. I don't think of Larson or Bubba. Bubba's who it's in now, right?
Bubba. That's funny.
And it's even we talk about a guy like Truex, it's just having different sponsors. It's you're successful in different cars. Nobody's gonna everyone talks about the Auto Traders, how he's so, but it's Truex wins in other cars. You know what I mean? It's if that was a sponsor, that would be huge. But it's just just another car for him. That's just kind of how they look at it. It's almost weird. At least with Kyle Busch, I know he's got his Interstate batteries. I know he's got his others. But at least a lot of times, if he's doing M&Ms, it's different kind. He always used to have that yellow M&Ms car, and he still does. But they do different kinds of M&Ms. They kind of paint. At least it's the same sponsor. It's just a different look to the car.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what happened is the money got too fucking big. Right? These teams kept having to push and push and push and more research and ask for more money, and it eventually priced the sponsors out of being able to afford a full season. So then they started piecing them out because they can make more money by selling less races across more sponsors, because that's all it's about is more money, because you need it to stay competitive. And I mean, that is what has crushed what I feel like NASCAR, and they keep trying to solve it with gimmicks and lower horsepower, as opposed to you gotta make these cars just cheaper to operate, which that's what they're trying to do with next gen, right? But I mean, you can't get rid of the spending, though. You're still going to have teams spend more, and it's just going to be the same cycle. It's going to keep repeating. It's just
you
need a salary cap, right?
A guy like Kurt Busch, is he now? I mean, you think it was a monster? I mean, is that where he's at?
I still think Sharpie. Or unsponsored. It's
honestly, I think when I think of Kurt Busch, I still think back to his the Miller days when he was back in, what was it, the 2, whatever Penske car he was in for a couple of years. That's kind of was my introduction to Kurt Busch. But now it's Monster's his car sponsor. Yeah. Monster's him. He's always holding a Monster. It's just what Kurt Busch is.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think, I would think associates well with the sponsor. As far as you think of him, you think of Monster. Yeah.
Because from his hat to his shoes to what he's drinking.
Yeah, he's normally always there.
But, as much as you always make fun of him, it's that's good marketing.
And he's not driving a ton of different cars, right? He's driving the Monster car pretty much every week, right? That's why you feel that way about him. That's why you think that.
Any other NASCAR topics, subjects, anything to kind of go over? Oh, I have one more question for you. And I'm going to ask Jason first because I feel like I already know Brandon's answer. We've had we've had a decent amount of female drivers come through from the bottom. It's exactly why I didn't ask Brandon. So basically,
since you can't see me, I'm already
no, I can see
smack in my head. No, not you, the listeners. Of course, you can see me.
Yeah, Brandon's face palmed, but he's been face palming since we stopped talking about Casey Anthony. But Jason, basically halfway through her first full truck seasons, how do you think Haillie Deegan's performed?
I think she's been fine. I don't know where all the hate is at. I mean, I think she's had some good runs. Obviously, she's struggled a little bit, but it seems like she gets better through a race. She's not wadding up a ton of cars. She's wrecking people, which is kind of a bummer. But I mean, I think she's a young girl. A young driver. It doesn't matter if she's a girl. She's going to make mistakes. First half truck season, I think it's a success. You'd like to. I mean, she's running just as good as Gray in some instances, and it'll be curious to see how she starts running when she gets back to these tracks she's been to before. So, yeah, I don't think you can. I would chalk it up as. I would say, give her a B- for the first quarter of her first truck series season. Yeah.
Brandon, I'm sure you're going to tell me why she's been awful and hasn't performed even close to what she has, and how the future of NASCAR is probably ruined because they're going to put it behind Haillie Deegan. But what have you thought about her?
Yeah, that last statement is true, but she's 19.
She's got Monster. They're NASCAR's almost biggest sponsor right now.
And this is her like third year in asphalt racing. Like, she's doing just fine. Just fine. Although it's very similar to how quarterbacks are nowadays, to where you got to win right off the bat or you're gone. It just depends.
She's going to get a leash, though.
I hope so.
She's got way.
She's got a huge on her, and she's got a huge deal with Ford. Ford's going to put her in.
So Chevy sponsored Danica for years. That doesn't mean anything.
And got her into a cup. She got into a cup.
How long she was able to drive for? I mean,
let's be honest. Danica drove about 4 years too long.
She did. You're right.
She never should have been where she was.
Leash, is what I said.
I don't know, but every week watching her and David Reagan wreck each other, that was entertaining. Running for 19th and 20th place every week, that was entertaining. But Jason, the question I'm going to ask you, I know we're looking way down the line.
Were you still asking Brandon a question or no?
No, he
just got done with my.
I thought you had answered. Then you answered. You said this is her third year on the asphalt racing.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right.
Yeah, I like Haillie Deegan, man. I like her dad. I like the family. I'm a Haillie Deegan fan. I just hate that people are like, she needs to win or she sucks.
Well, I mean, God damn it. I mean, we got to stop looking at like the stupid asses on Twitter, because there's it doesn't matter what post you look at. There's a dumbass underneath it saying something stupid. Like it could be a beautiful puppy.
Don't talk about Brandon like that.
I mean, yeah, sometimes it is Brandon, but I mean, there's always a dickhead somewhere in the field. So whatever.
Do we think we see at some point Haillie Deegan in an Xfinity or a Cup car?
Well, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, you think the progression? That's where they want her at. I mean,
so I'll take Xfinity Avenue. Do you think Haillie Deegan ever gets a full-time Cup car ride even for a year?
Yeah.
And do you think it will have been earned? Do you think at that point people will say she's earned this, or it's going to be she's
no? There was still going to be people who were going to say she didn't earn it, no matter what she does. So
she's better than she has talent in general. It's just that people want her to be the next great, which you can't put that upon anyone. But I mean, she has
nobody, right? Yeah, nobody.
Yeah.
But the one benefit, which Jason kind of pointed out, is that it should be irrelevant that she's a female. Like, that shouldn't matter at all. Like, when you're driving a race car, that has no impact on whether you're good or not. But if that's how people are going to categorize her, it does help that there hasn't been that quote unquote success. Like, isn't that person that you're trying to achieve. Like, you can now create your own, path, your legacy. You can be, that. You know what I'm saying?
Imagine if the
if Danica had come out and Danica had won 10 Cup races, like, you know what I mean? Like, Danica didn't even win it. I mean, it's not like she never won. Like, it's not like there's nothing that you're shooting for. You're kind of like, and now you have there's no pressure really. I mean, I don't want to say there's no pressure. There's obviously pressure, but there's not the pressure of like, hey, like,
it's a low ceiling.
Was the best. You've got to catch them.
It's a low ceiling to smash.
Correct.
I was going to say, it's like if we took somebody off the street and told them, okay, you have the highest expectation of Brian Scott. Good luck trying to beat that. And then we're like, but Scott wasn't that great to begin with. All Haillie has to do is pretty much, have a better, finishing a race percentage than Danica, and she's pretty much done it.
I mean, I would think at this point in her season, her goal is going to be to win races, right? I mean, first thing is her goal should be to win a truck race, win an Xfinity race, and eventually she wants to be the first woman probably to win a Cup Series race, right? I mean, I think if she goes her whole career and doesn't win one, she's probably going to feel that as a disappointment, and I think a lot of her fans probably will as well.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of, those are kind of like not necessarily just her, but the Xfinity and the truck guys, their paths of these young drivers that try and get to quote unquote the big leagues of the Cup. I think it's interesting to watch, and how we've seen like a guy like John Hunter Nemechek, you can get there, but then maybe you have a better path whether it's a current or for your future, to go back to a trucks or Xfinity cars and be like, you know what, I'm just going to win 150 races this year. Like, that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to prove that I can do it. And at some point he might get another Cup Series ride because, like Brandon had mentioned, he told Alfredo, like, here, like, I know what this 38 car is about. Like, you go drive this thing. Like, you go have fun in it. Like, I'm going to go drive a KBM truck that's going to be the fastest truck every week. And
Maybe
I think
he
it's kind
tricked
of
Alfredo into it. Maybe he was like, listen, man, I think you could do way better in this car than I'm doing.
Like, I fucking suck as a driver.
I'm wasting their time. You're the real driver here, Fast Pasta. You need to be in this, okay?
Do you think Alfredo saw him win, like, 2 Truck Series races in, like, the first 3 weeks? He was like, well, fuck. Like, clearly it was the car.
My life sucks.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what Toyota's going to do with all the guys they got coming up through. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of There's not a lot of Toyotas in the Cup field. I mean, I know
2311 cars. It sounds like.
I know they're going to expand, but still, there's just a lot of guys, a lot of good Toyota guys coming up.
I'm highly disappointed that there is not another manufacturer in NASCAR. This was the whole deal. I know they're going to go to a smaller motor in the future, but the whole deal of the next gen car, when it was first proposed, was to bring in Honda or bring in somebody else who wanted to be a part of this, and they're not. I was
just gonna say, when I was just looking back at the old BKM trucks, just seeing the name Dodge Ram, that's just a nice, I never really haven't thought of it in a while. Dodge has been out of the sport, and Ram obviously being specific to the truck, whatever. But what you kind of mentioned,
know the horsepower yet on the next gen? Have they?
It's probably going to be 550.
I know we're assuming, but they haven't announced it though, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're still going to use a V8, but it's going to be severely neutered. I mean, currently right now the pace car at most tracks has more horsepower than the Cup cars.
Yeah,
especially when they get a Camaro pace.
Like, if you want them to be like bunched up, like, why not like run them freaking wide open, high horsepower, and just put big ass wings on them to suck everybody up to each other?
Why don't you make them like airplanes?
Yeah.
Put wings on them. Get them off the ground a little
horsepower.
All right. Well, we are about an hour and 10 into this, and we could keep this NASCAR talk going all day, but I'm sure there'll be other episodes and races.
We got another episode next week's going to be before salaries and qualifying and all that again, because we get practicing stuff again next week, don't we?
Yeah, next week.
Oh, the 600. Oh, yes, it's my birthday. They're racing just for me. Oh no, it's
the Coca-Cola 600. That was the first, like, of when I used to watch, like, or when I first started watching, like, the YouTube clips of, like, the Radioactives. I remember watching one of them, and I forgot who it was, but somebody driving their first 600 and was basically like, how much more we got, and crew chief was like almost halfway. And it's like something like you don't realize, like, 600 miles it's a big difference. Some of these, But we will get into that next week when they go to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600. But for this week, Jason, where can they find all your stuff at?
Find it at freenascardfs.com. I'm hoping that's going to be up and running by then. I've been having a little struggle with the website. But if not, you can find me on Twitter at DFS NASCAR. I'll have it posted a link to my old blog if I can't get my website working. But content's going to look a little different this week. I'm not planning on doing anything in between qualifying and the races because they're same day qualifying. So you'll probably get a cheat sheet with some stats and with kind of guys' rankings for road courses. But after that, after qualifying, you guys can be essentially on your own. So,
Brandon, and where can they find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at Brandon Cruz DFS on YouTube, Twitter, and Patreon. I kind of hinted that, my birthday's later next week, and it's going to be my 3rd year anniversary of making DFS content. So I'm still here. Wow.
So if you guys want to send me Brandon's gifts, I will make sure he gets them. How about that? Yeah, and so make sure you remember, check out my website as well, betwithbommel.com. Follow me on Twitter, Gambling DFS Tips, NASCAR betting across all of our sports. Kind of all diversified on there. And then wherever you guys are listening to this episode, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever else you guys are listening, like, rate, review, subscribe. It's easy to do. It helps us out a lot. I know Jason's been on YouTube in the comment section, so if you guys have comments, questions, suggestions, anything, that's a good place to always drop them. But like I said, just hitting that thumbs up, like, subscribe, it helps us a lot. Helps us build this platform and keep it free for you guys, which obviously is what we try to do, is provide some sort of free content for you at the beginning of the week to get you ready for the race. So as always, we thank you guys for listening. As we mentioned, we'll be back next week when we go to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600. On behalf of Jason and Brandon, I am Ryan Baumel. Thank you guys for listening, and may all your lineups avoid the whammies this week. Best luck, guys.